It's like, oh, that day just got away from me.
Hey, what's it?
Go ahead and call the meeting to order. At this time, is there an invocation?
Father, we thank you for a great day today, for the sunshine, for moisture, for all that you're doing, things we can't see that you're doing, but we trust you. Pray you be word over everything, word over this meeting as we bring glory to you in all we do in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No.
Would entertain a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda for February 3rd, 2001.
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Hash, seconded by Commissioner Hutchinson to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to public comments. This is the time where citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. We request that you state your name and address, speak respectfully, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anyone online, Chief? No. All right. Moving on to proclamations, recognitions, presentations. Broadway Plaza update.
Hi. How's it going?
Good evening.
I would like to say I do like the view. It's always money here.
I find that to be a sexist comment. I'm not uncomfortable with this shift in power.
I mean, I thought about walking in here with music playing, like, but so yeah.
My fragile masculinity.
2020 was kind of an odd year for us, but it was actually still very active at the Broadway Plaza. And I felt that the events that we did have kind of gave individuals a sense of normalcy. But the total events that we did have was 110. And actually, I will pass these out if we don't have them. September was 18 and December was also 18, but on December, I did count every single day that we had Santa mailbox out as an event. Total attendance was 3,557, and that was down a lot, but obviously due to the pandemic, it's to be expected. Our movie series, we had to reschedule one of them twice, and by the time we had it, it was in September. Even though time and time again, we tell ourselves not to have a movie in September, we did, but again, never. Again, we have a movie in September. Concert series, we only ended up having 2 concerts. 2 of the bands had to cancel because of COVID, and we did have 6 new events: bike rodeo, sheriff candidate forum, Bright Beginnings preschool graduation, Mummy at Mystery Mansion, live nativity, which was pretty awesome. The Wesleyan Church hosted that for 3 nights, and there was all kinds of new animals. One night, goat, sheep. That was interesting and fun. And of course, Santa mailbox, which was pretty amazing. We received 252 letters and wrote back 221. And some of you guys, Marsha and Ashley and Chrissy, thank you guys for helping me write those. We had about 10 people that helped write. I know last year I had a goal of like 500. That was ridiculous. So glad it was not 500. But we received letters from 10 cities, 3 states, and then some maintenance updates that we had. We did install automatic water faucets and soap dispensers. At one point, I was wrapping new tree lights around the trees, and there were bugs all over me. So we ended up having Republican Valley spray for tree bugs. And then we also ditched the green and blue metal chairs. They were looking rotten. So hopefully this year we would like to buy a couple more tables and chairs, the black ones that we have out there. They're from Crate and Barrel, and we actually used Community Foundation funds, those Broadway Plaza operating account. If we still have money in that, we will definitely use that again. Those chairs and tables are expensive, but they've held up, very durable. Right now, they are not in stock, unfortunately. So hopefully spring, they'll come back. And then hopeful new events for 2021. Trifles, which would be hosted by the theater department at the college. Kentucky Derby, 4th grade spelling bee, which is something we did have scheduled for last year, but had to reschedule that. And a possible race car cruising. One thing I don't have on here is maybe a birthday party for the Broadway Plaza, because it does turn 5 in September. But I mean, I can't
Maybe
just
a
be adding all
concert?
kinds of- What?
Maybe a concert or a movie?
Who knows? Who knows what will happen? Maybe a clown face painting. I don't know. Pinatas?
No
I don't
clowns.
know.
No clowns.
Cake, definitely cake. Movie and concert series for 2021. We are switching things up and we are going to move them to Fridays instead. They'll be the same time. But hopefully we'll maybe encourage new people to come, and then other people won't have an excuse like, oh, I have to get up early. You know, people semi always have to get up early, but they won't have to go to work, hopefully. And then something else new, we did hire somebody to fill my position. Her name is Nikki Reed, and she started on Monday. So I've been training her, and my last day is February 19th. Yeah, any questions? That was quick.
I think I'm just couldn't be more pleased with how the Broadway Plaza has done. I think even in the last year was what it was, but I remember how many folks were challenging the commission's support for the Broadway Plaza as we were talking about it as an idea, and said, well, what if it flops? What if all this stuff? So then you'll be able to rub it in my face. This was a mistake, but I want to see if it can work. And I think the positive experiences that we've had from our community, the positive feedback we received from folks outside of our community really, I think, are a testament to the quality of place that it is. And I think that it has been able to accomplish a lot of that through the work that you've done. So I'm hopeful that Nick, you'll be able to follow in your footsteps, but you've done a remarkable job coordinating this and getting this up and running. And couldn't thank you more for the work that you've done to make it what it is.
Just a little small piece of the puzzle.
And a very important piece.
Yeah, you've done a great job. I've got a question though. Do you have any idea how much the splash pad is utilized? I mean, is it used every day during?
I wouldn't doubt that it's
Warm
used
weather.
every day, and I do actually have, after talking with Jeremy, was it this summer that I asked you about usage possibly? So I do have
I
a
don't know if that's
sheet
good
of
news or
like,
bad news.
oh, like, no, I mean, we used so much water this last year.
It's good because it means people are using it.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy because you think like, oh no, but I mean, it's on every day, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And just there's so many kids. But I can actually email you that because I had a conference with Kansas Tourism, because I mean we're an inspiration for a lot of people, and a lot of people are like, how did you get a splash pad? We got a grant, but you know, yeah, I can send that to you if you'd
I'm
like.
just curious because it seems to me that it's utilized a great deal,
Oh yeah, a
but
lot.
there's no
Absolutely.
scientific.
Yeah.
I think it turned a lot of people's attitudes around. There was a lot of people I heard was negative about it until after they seen it being used for a few years.
Yep.
They
Yep, I
couldn't
agree.
really envision what it was gonna do.
Jessica, you can't get away from me saying a couple things. So again, like our meeting last time, I think marked the 5-year anniversary of the first shovel in the ground, and the 3 of you had a shovel in your hand. So thank you for the vision for it, but really a lot of it is attributed to you. And it's nice to go downtown and see a screen that has, you know, Bernie Sanders doing yoga. That's your personality, and that's just been something that
I don't
is-
ask for permission, I'm sorry.
And that's been then turn our community's personality to visitors and just being in a downtown business to hear people on the street talking about what's going on. Or when I walk out of work every night, there's a group of 10 or 15 sixth grade boys playing football. It's the best noise when you're, and most downtowns are silent or grumbly and you're hearing just kids having fun. It's just a testament to the welcoming mat you've put out, and thank you very much.
Big shoes to fill.
But
The big shoes to fill.
She'll be. You guys can all help her. Committee. Bye.
She's literally running out the door. Okay. Moving on to executive session for confidential business data. I'm entertain a motion.
I move that the city commission recess into executive session to discuss confidential business data on trade secrets of a business, KSA 754319 with Amy Lang, Justin Farrell, Ron Koppel, and is our other guest here?
Yeah, he'll be on Zoom.
And Ryan Keeger in attendance for the first 10 minutes, and Amy Lang and Justin Farrell in attendance for the following 10 minutes, and to reconvene in the city commission chamber at 6:01.
Sounds good.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, seconded by Commissioner Wentz to move into executive session. Confidential business data, trade secrets, business, KSA 754319 before with Amy Lang, Justin Farrell, Ron Koppel, Ryan Keegan in attendance for the first 10 minutes, and Amy Lang, Justin Farrell in attendance for the following 10 minutes, and reconvene in the city commission chamber at 6:01 p.m. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
For hiring for what? You can get two sides. One of the quarters and I know for replacement of repairs of the old ones. That's how much they're currently got.
No action was taken. At this point, we're moving on to the action agenda. Minutes of the January 20th, 2021 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from January 20th, 2021.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hash, seconded by Commissioner Belden to approve the minutes from the January 20th, 2021 meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to appropriation ordinance number 2.
I move to approve appropriation ordinance number 2.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wentz, seconded by Commissioner Hash to approve appropriation ordinance number 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to Public Works vehicle bids.
Mayor and Commissioners, we sent out bids on January 7th for a small utility vehicle. And on January 21st, we opened them, and Concordia Chevrolet Buick had a bid of $27,353.75 for a 2021 Chevy Equinox. And Farm Country Ford had a bid of $23,143 for a 2020 Ford Escape. This vehicle replaces a 2011 Chevy Impala. And they're going to use the Chevy Impala to go to fire training and EMS training, and then we're going to sell it after that. Are there any questions I can answer on that?
I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the 2020 Ford Escape purchase from Farm Country Ford for $23,145.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, seconded by Commissioner Hash to approve the 2020 Ford Escape purchase from Farm Country Ford for $23,145. Is there any further discussion?
Hello?
Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. Moving on to tennis court LED lighting bids.
Mayor Commissioners, we sent out for bids for LED lighting for the tennis courts east of the swimming pool. And we received them back. I actually sent out to 6 different vendors too, and then we put it in the paper also. We still only got one bid, and that was from Hood Heating and Air for $45,508. And he put something down on there to remove the old poles and stuff. And I feel like the city staff can do that, so we're gonna do that. Any questions on that then?
Any idea as to how old the current lighting is?
70. I'd say the 70s when the park was built. 70s. They did a refurb in the 90s.
Yeah.
So it's, the current system has served us well
Yeah,
over time. So it's not that this is a 5-year
no.
deal. We anticipate the new will serve us well moving forward.
I'm hoping the new, that I won't even have to replace lights for probably 10 years, and I'm constantly out there replacing bulbs on that thing.
And the cost of operating the lights is much cheaper with LED.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
They're now much cheaper.
Not only that, just, it takes 3 guys to lower them poles, and then when you get them down, and then a fixture's broke, and you gotta put them back up, and then you gotta go back out and re-lower them. There's a lot of labor in it too,
Good.
so.
I think they're hard to do, but the hope is get it back, get it better, and
Hopefully, everything goes perfect.
always plan for no plan to go to plan. I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve purchasing LED lighting for the tennis courts from Hood Heating and Air for $45,508.
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Hash, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve the purchasing LED lighting for the tennis courts for Hood Heating and Air for $45,508. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the connecting link project, South Highway 81.
Mayor Commissioners, I talked to you about this at the last meeting, and I didn't think they'd get the stuff to us as quick as they did. So what we have here is an authority to award contract and commitment of city funds for the project out on 81 Highway, which is south city limits, back to 500 feet before College Drive to the north. KDOT's, their share will go up to $1 million, so anything after that would be our share, but right now, they're asking for $73,000 for commitment of funds, which we just approved on the appropriation ordinance. And hopefully, if we don't have no overruns or nothing, that would cover it. We should be in good shape. But there may be a change order out there. I see it. Well, when we bid it and we planned the whole thing, we just planned that one lane through there. And in the meantime, I've noticed in the intersection, there's some panels breaking up in the other lane to the east side a little bit. So we may have to do a change order and repair them when we're right there.
As unfortunate as that is, I think I think that over time, as people become real aware that westernmost lane is as rough as it is, they start utilizing the other lane, and it's going to create a greater burden there. So I would not be at all surprised, but I think it's what we need to do.
Right. Is there any other questions you have on that?
I move to approve the mayor to sign the authority to award contract and commitment of city funds for the connecting link South Highway project for $73,000.
Second that?
So moved by Commissioner Wentz, second by Commissioner Hutchinson to approve the mayor to sign the authority to award contract and commitment of city funds for the connecting link South Highway project for $73,000. Is Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron, appreciate it. Couple irons in the fire.
I don't know why he didn't do the next one.
CDBG project, downtown alley bids.
Yes, the mayor and commissioners, on January 19th, we had the bid letting for the downtown alley reconstruction project. There were 3 bidders that came to the bid. We had 8 bidders acknowledge the plan originally and only 3 submitted bids. And we know that 2 of them did not submit because they were submitting on the South 81 Highway project, which was 3 days later. So they didn't think they could do both of them. So they just let one go. The 3 bids were definitely not all in the same ballpark. 2 of them were real close and one was clear out. And then talking with the company that was the high bid, Votes Fargo, they're the ones who got the Highway 81 project or going to contract with for the Highway 81 project. And they knew that if they got both projects, they were going to have to put additional personnel on, so their price was higher to handle that extra. So, now, they're not supposed to tell you that, but I asked those questions because it seemed awful high for what the other 2 were. So, or Wyatt Streetscapes is the company that is the low bidder. They're a company located in Raytown, Missouri. They began work in that business in 2010. I had him send me a list of projects they'd done. He sent me a list beginning in 2012 up to this last year. There's 53 projects. Now, that's a lot of projects in that short of time. So I asked for more information. They're actually what you would call a group company. They have 3 companies in their group. One of them does just landscape work. One of them does project management work, and one of them does utility and street paving work. So it's kind of an interesting group. I've not seen one like that done that way before. So we did some more checking. I took 3 of the references that they gave me, made phone calls to those cities. Right now, they're currently in Washington, Kansas, doing a $1.5 million water line project. They're replacing almost all the water lines in Washington, which is 700 and some services. I can't wish that on anybody to do, but, and I talked to their city manager, and their city manager was very happy with the company. The only problem he saw in the whole project was the fact that they had given them 1 year to do the project through the block grant. And he said, it's a bigger project than 1 year. He said, we should have had at least 18 months, but what they got was a substantial completion certificate saying that the majority of the work had been done. So anything that occurred after that that took a little longer, they were okay with it. So that's what they're doing there. I made contact with Olathe, Kansas, where they had done some sanitary sewer work. That person was very tight-lipped. In other words, I didn't get much from them. They don't give out information. That kind of information on private contract or public contracts, which I didn't understand. So I called the chamber and they told me all kinds of things. I think that was just a policy.
It's their policy.
So, and they were very happy with it. So then the third one I called was in a little town in Kansas. What's the name of it? Sedan. And they did a water line project there, and their people were real happy with them. They're a town that's really small, as I think she told me 5 people employed doing utility and street repairs, something like that. So it's a pretty small town. And they had a $300,000 block grant project to do water line repairs. And they were very happy with it. So based upon those recommendations and talking to the president of the company for 30 minutes or so, one of the days, I feel like they're a company that we can benefit from having the low bid. We know that the second low bid, Smoky Hill, was the one who did the project on the north side of downtown in 2002. So we knew what the project was. So it made me feel pretty comfortable that their price was somewhat comparable, knowing that they had difficulty with that project because of the amount of moisture we found under the pavement. And so I'm sure that they bid it with the idea there could be surprises. And I think that's what cost them the bid. So our recommendation is that you would accept Orr Wyatt Streetscapes as the low bidder, and that we would award them the project, and that we would make contact with them to begin the work starting March 15th is their plan. Now, that date may have changed somewhat depending on what the utility companies do, because the gas and telephone are both going to do relocations and replacements that are supposed to start this month. And I don't know how long they'll take. And I've been in contact with them since October. I've seen the telephone plans, which Ron, they're the worst things in the world. They're horrible. They're on 8.5 by 11, no scale. So I had to call the contractor to ask him to walk through the plans so I knew what they were doing. It's all nomenclature type of thing. And then the gas company told me they were proposing to do some relocation in the east block, in the middle block, and a little bit in the west block. But I have no plans from them yet today. Now, on the plans for this project, we had put in a note, the contractor's note, that told him that if the utility companies were in his way when he started and he couldn't start anywhere, that we would work with his date. If they could start, we would want them to start. Now, obviously, the beginning point has to be Broadway. It's the low point of the sewer. All of the sewer has to be done. Sanitary sewer has to be done first. If they start in Broadway and go east for that block, they could do that, or they could go west for that block and be out of somebody's way at some point. So I'm hopeful that we can start the 15th of March, and their plan is to be done September 1. Now, we have not opened the alley yet, and we know we had surprises in the alley on the other side. We found a well in the middle of the alley that we had to take care of and cap off and get KDH approval before we crossed it. We found old telephone conduit that was dead, that we had to wait for the telephone company to verify. So there's always surprises in the alley. Hopefully we plan for the majority of them and we can work around that issue. So our recommendation, Campbell Johnson, is that we contract with Orr Wyatt Streetscapes, and that we would send them a notice of award tomorrow, probably, and then a letter to the unsuccessful bidders telling them that you have decided to award the project to Orr Wyatt, and then we'd send them a bid tabulation of all the bids so that they could compare prices, be better prepared for their next bids. There's a lot of documentation. We still have not received a sanitary sewer permit from KDHE. I've been on them every 2 weeks. They're the people who have to approve the plans. And they told me in September, they may not even require approval because we're replacing an existing, but they would like us to send it in. Everybody that I've talked to has been either sick with COVID or is now sick with COVID, or is out and are having to work from home and then the load is too great. They lost 5 people since October in that part. So based upon that and talking with Amanda Horn with the North Central Regional Planning, I told her where we at and she said, that's the best you can do. My guess is we'll get a letter to the city and they'll say, sorry, it took so long, we don't need it. That's my guess. Any other things I can answer for you?
You know, I think all we can do is check on references for a company that we've not worked with. It sounds like there were some positive reviews. I hate to be the first person to give like a 1-star review when I see so many 5-star reviews, but I know, so I kind of guess is $80,000 worth peace of mind going with a company that we know and have worked with before.
Yep.
Versus
Understand.
recognizing the value of tax money going to the most efficient, the best.
It's also a more local company.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of small.
And if it had been closer, 20, 30,000, I might have recommended the second bidder just because we had experience with them. But 80,000 is quite a difference.
It is.
That's
And I
more
don't,
than 10%.
unless everything that I heard and everything I learned in talking with their company, unless that's all a sham, we probably will have no problem whatsoever. It'd be nice to have another company that's available for her. They started in Raytown and did a bunch of work right in that area in Missouri. Then jumped over and did work in Olathe, and they're coming west. They've just been on 2 projects in north.
Other questions?
No.
I'm fine with it, difference in money.
I'm sorry?
I said, I'm fine with it, the difference in the bids. I was surprised the one was so much higher.
And that's why I called them, because I knew after the bids were taken and we'd opened them, they couldn't change them. And they would tell me if they really wanted to. And we've worked with them twice in the last year in other communities. And, you know, I think they were being just as honest as they could be. We'd like to do the work because it's going to be in the town. We're doing your airport. We're going to do your highway. We'd like to do the work, but where are we going to get enough people to do all that work in 1 year?
And virtually at the same time.
Which could be a real problem. You could end up with 2 or 3 people working downtown while everybody else is somewhere else. We really have a time frame on downtown. We have a fall festival at all. We've got to have it done and cleaned up and out of there. Otherwise, I would not recommend having both. Yeah, keep the public safe. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, if we can't keep it off that block of Broadway, you know, I know because May is kind of the busy season for the plaza too. If we can just move
In
it.
fact, the contractor told me, Smokey Hill told me that if it went beyond the date of the Fall Fest, they would put plywood between the buildings at both ends of the alley to block people from getting access, to protect themselves. They're that worried about it. Now, if they're done, except everyone, it's no big deal. It's cleaned up, gone, and nobody knows the difference. It will be a mess. I think I've said that for the last 40 years, every time we started a job. It will be a mess. And we won't have happy constituents while it's going on.
We are planning a pre-construction meeting and then a property owner meeting too, to get everybody involved in this so they know what's going
Or
on.
give them an opportunity to be involved. Now, we'll send out a construction notice before the construction starts and notifies all the 52 downtown business owners, residents of what we're doing and where we're anticipating it start. And then I right now scheduled to do one every month, first month an update. And I talked to Toby and he's willing to put it on the radio.
He's a nice guy, that's Toby.
He's a nice guy.
No matter what you hear.
He'll probably call me up.
Problem is I hear most of it.
Interview me in the middle of something.
He's agreed to take the complaint calls.
I thought I heard that too. I mean, we're sitting right on the downtown, just as the city hall is. They're gonna come see it. This is the way it's gonna be.
So I'll throw these couple questions out just to make sure that we've done it all. So is there, being that there's CDBG grant dollars and not necessarily coming out of our immediate funds, in other words, spending somebody else's money, ultimately it's all our money, the grant comes from nowhere. You feel like that it's an acceptable, I guess, risk gamble to go ahead and go with and I have no reason to doubt or why. I just know that it seems like the Smoky Hill did a really nice job. Previously, they've done good work for us before. Is the risk reward worth it? And I honestly don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. I just want to put it out there before we make a decision. I have no reason to doubt them.
I don't either.
But we've had positive experience with the other, and is that worth it? Is it going to compromise our ability to go after further CBDG grant dollars if we're not taking the lowest bid?
Is that a requirement?
The lowest responsible bidder has to be awarded the contract unless there's significant reason why not.
Well, that answers that, I think.
Yeah, there's not significant.
I asked that question too.
It's not responsible, sometimes
Yeah.
help or hinder us.
Yeah, if I'd have got reduced so-so, I could have used that and said, well, I'm not sure they're responsible.
Fair enough. That's
Okay, with that in mind, I would move to award the CDBG project for downtown alley to Orr Wyatt Streetscapes for $658,418.50.
so moved by Commissioner Hutchison, second by Commissioner Wentz to award the CDBG project for downtown alley to Orr Wyatt Streetscapes for $658,418.50. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
I
Thank
hope I can come back to you in September and say, wasn't that a great job?
We hope so too. Annexation of non-contiguous lands.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is the last step in the process. Annexation of non-contiguous lands. I brought to you a resolution a while back to ask the county that it wouldn't bother anything, and they got it back fine. So this ordinance is to annex some land that Carrie and Diana Stuka have a petition to bring in. It's non-contiguous. We did get the signed documents that you have in your packet today from Carrie, so we'll be able to register those so we can go ahead and adopt this ordinance, which would be my recommendation. And then that easement will be registered with the ordinance so that we'll be able to get emergency services to the house, because that'll be in the city now. Any questions? Get some more taxpayers so we can get these projects paid for.
Entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2021-3173.
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Hash, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve ordinance 2021-3173. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
There's a second motion notice on here, and I think that, I believe that's so Amy can sign the documents. And that was added later on the memo. I didn't know for sure if that was had to be there or not, but I think you have to motion for, to be able to sign the development agreement. That are involved here, so.
I'd make a motion to authorize city manager Annie Lang to sign the development agreement,
Second.
For mayor.
or the mayor,
It's the
sorry. Mayor shall sign first, sign the development agreement, sorry.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Hash. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Moving on to reports, managers report.
Nothing this evening.
Okay, staff reports.
I'll just give you guys, can I be staff? Okay. I'm going to give you guys a quick update on the eminent domain proceedings that we had okayed by resolution and then ordinance end of last year. That's kind of ramping back up. And there were some things that caused delays, nothing legal, just life. That happened there at the end of the last year. So I've got that back up and going. There's quite a bit of paperwork that has to be filed initially. So when I say I'm just about done with all of that. So that should be filed. Amy will have to sign a couple documents and then we'll get the ball rolling on that. And it'll take some time, but hopefully nothing too terribly complicated. So, and that's all I have.
Any other staff reports? Hearing none. Commissioner reports. Marcia?
I just want to thank the street department for cleaning the streets after the snow more than once, I think. I appreciate that.
Would you?
I heard from and I think that somebody came and met with you, Amy, the other day about new maps for the city. Is that something that we can do, or what do you think?
Not in-house, we'll have to take a look at it. Our maps were last updated in 2011, and we don't have the capability in-house to do as robust of maps. We rely on Campbell and Nelson for that. So we'll have to look into that a little bit further, what it would take to get those updated.
Currently, we've been changing that map quite a bit. So, you know, if it looks like we're going to continue with that, I would suggest that we put that on hold. But if there's no reason to not do it, then yeah, every 10 years, I would say probably makes sense to do that.
What sort of map are we talking about?
Just the map of the city limits, the map that shows the streets, the map that shows major landmarks, that sort of thing.
So is it something like a road map, or is it something more professional?
We used to have them in this room.
So there's one that shows like emergency snow routes. There's one that travel and tourism uses when they have people that come and say, I want to go look at this. They'll put a piece of paper in front of them that shows the map, and here's where the different places are that are in relationship to each other, and here's what the street names are called. It's just a very simple line drawing, so it's very easy to read and understand. That'd be one of them. Then we've got several on the wall too that show city limits, the zoning map, all those different maps too.
I guess I just wondered that I like to simplify things by making them complicated, that this would be a pretty good year for us to do some map making, seeing that it is the sesquicentennial. That could be a bit of a promotion as we have this map making process that, so then I guess if we come out next year, it could still be celebrating 150 years. But it could be a nice addition to that if we were to move forward with it.
They've been in to see me too and asked for an updated map. What can I provide them with? We're looking. They were after more of this community map that tells where there's a hospital and there's matters or there's a, those kind of things. And we did not do the original one. We gave a base map to the chamber and they hired CAD students out of high school to use the map. And I've asked them if that CAD file is still available. Of course, nobody has it.
Somewhere.
It's around somewhere.
Yeah. I didn't get it, so.
Got a 5.5 inch floppy disk.
2011 isn't that long ago. Thank you.
Commissioner Hutchinson, Ashley? I did just echo Marcia's comments. It was a lot of snow, so appreciate you moving it all. Also compliments, saw that Jeremy's crews were a little active on a brisk but Wednesday morning. And I really, I really appreciate that work because it was difficult walking from my house to my car. So I can imagine it was a little more uncomfortable actually having to hang out in the trenches doing some work. So it makes me that much more appreciative of all the work that you all do. Moving on to information agenda.
But we don't need to discuss that, that's just for your information.
Fair enough. I would entertain a motion to adjourn to the study session, discussion of employee pay scale.
I'll move to adjourn to a study session to discuss the employee pay scale.
Any second? Moved by Commissioner Hash, seconded by Regina. Commissioner Belden to adjourn to the study session for discussion of employee pay scale. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. So speaking of timing, I saw this, it's on a meme, so it has to be true, that the Wonder Years, remember that show?
Yes.
It came out in 1988, depicting life 20 years previously. If it were to come out today, that family would be set in 2001.
I don't like that.
The Wonder Years came out in 1988,
Yes.
depicting life 20 years previously in 68. So if that show came out today, it would be depicting a family life in 2001.
Wow.
That's deep.
Kind of messes with that.
Yeah.
We're 6 years past the future and back to the future.
And hoverboards are not quite what they were, are they? And hoverboards are quite negative.
Although those sunglasses look like they're coming. I see some of these high school kids in pre-grad shades.
And bullets too.
God bless them. I wish I had the patience or the discipline to grow them on. I love it. Yeah.
Pretty open-minded when it comes to mullets. Stay away from them.
All right. On to more pressing matters of wage study.
All right. You guys need a break or anything before we start in this discussion or good?
My social potential.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. And I can take mine off too.
All right, Mayor and Commissioners, have in your packet a memo that kind of describes a little bit of background, some options for consideration, possibilities for funding if you were to choose to move forward, and then staff recommendation. And then I believe we also emailed you under separate cover an actual wage study. We prepared that internally. Don't laugh too hard. It was my first attempt at this. I'm definitely open to any constructive criticism to make things better in the future. Happy to do that. We did take a look at wages in more depth compared to what we initially provided you. Initially, we provided you with a data set that was a comparison to comparably structured departments. And that data was gathered by our department heads, so we appreciate their efforts to do that. We also took a look at data from other cities of populations 3,000 to 8,000. And that was based on the 2018 salary study done by the League of Kansas Municipalities, which is the most current information that they had available for us. So we made those wages current, that information current by adjusting it by CPI for 2019 and 2020 to be able to compare to our information. Then we also took a look at some Bureau of Labor Statistics data for similarly structured jobs. Now, the similarly structured jobs included both public and private sector jobs for the non-metropolitan areas of Kansas, but they were not adjusted for population, and they did not speak to whether the departments would be structured similarly to ours or not. So 3 different ways of looking at things. And what you would see from your tables is that for the most part, we are still below average of all of those segments before we initiated the COLA that you had approved for 2021. And many departments were still below average even after the COLA. And then if we were to increase the base by $1 an hour, most departments were at average. Now, in some cases, there were departments that on 2 of the 3, they hit above average, and some of them, 1 of the 3, they hit above average. We had one department that stayed below average consistently through all of them. So we saw those. There were several questions that you had asked us last time, and we attempted to answer those through the wage study. One of them had to do with comparing to other jobs. I know, Ashley, you asked the question of if we compare to similar jobs here within our community. And the closest that we did to that was comparing to the county level jobs. Many of our jobs, we don't believe are very similar to private sector jobs, except for our admin staff, our clerical staff. And we did not take time to call. We do have anecdotal evidence or observation evidence from talking with people that come that apply for jobs with us or that do exit interviews, that we've got some basic wage information. I don't want to say specific companies, but we know that their starting wages are right around that $14, $15 an hour range. But the benefits also range from either offering benefits to not offering benefits. So they're all over the board there. The question was asked about if we were to offer some more abilities to have the city cover training cost or continuing ed cost, would that help to ease some of those concerns about offering a lower wage? And as we looked into it, we found that the city offers a lot of training to people. We don't really expect you to come in with a whole lot of background knowledge other than basic knowledge. Can you show up for work on time? Can you operate and tape measure? Can you run a calculator? Can you speak coherently? Can you write coherently? That kind of thing. And we'll train you in everything else. And we pay for that training. And part of that then I think speaks to how specific some of the jobs are to us. There's not really a lot of classes that are out there just for anybody to take unless you're planning to go into this area of employment. Then I think there were some other questions, I think, about diving into department specific. We only dive down deep into one department because they showed consistently below average there. And we know that what our proposal is of the $1 an hour does not get us up to average for that particular department, but we still believe that that $1 an hour across the board, even after the conversion from for fire, is within what we can afford. And again, the funding proposal to be able to afford this wage increase would be to use the incoming TIP revenue. When the TIP district was in place, that revenue went into a specific project fund. Now that the TIP district has expired, it will go into the general fund. It's not as restricted. We can decide how to use it. We would like to use a portion of that, about half of that, to help boost the wages here for city staff in an effort to help recruitment and retention for those employees that are in their first 10 years of employment. And then we also want, because let's see, try to explain it, because employees that stay here 10 years usually typically stay longer after that. So it's within that first 10 years, we really want to get people to stay. Then the other half would continue to be used for equipment replacement fund, capital improvement. It would add to that pot of money so we could continue to serve the public in the way that we need to serve. If you'll recall, for several years in recent history, we've had to squish those budgets, cut those budgets down because revenues may not have been what they wanted because we had health insurance increases, all sorts of reasons. So to be able to infuse those dollars back in will help to kind of get us caught up and get us out of that huge deferred maintenance backlog, if that makes sense. So anyway, I hope that wage study has been able to provide you with that background information. Are there any questions on it?
And it was a heavy haul. I really appreciate it. I know it takes a lot of work and I really do appreciate you doing that.
So if we look into our options, there are several options and really it came down to the same options that we had presented you to start with. Options, there's always an option to do nothing. You don't have to make a decision in line with our recommendation. You can do nothing. We had one option that we proposed to you to remove range 7 because as we look at what our needs are for skill sets for our employees, the skill set aligned with range 7 is obsolete for us anymore. And that ends up falling to a lot of our workers in our public works and utilities sector where they're not an operator, they're just a maintenance person. Well, we need them all to be operators to be as efficient as possible with our labor resources. Option C, we asked to adjust the length of time between merit and step increase eligibility. That speaks to the pay scale where we have an opportunity, if you approve it each year, to go with the cost of living increase, but that pay scale speaks to a step increase or merit increase. If an employee gets a positive evaluation, they're eligible for that merit increase. And we know that it ramps up every 6 months to every year for a while, and then it pauses, and you're only eligible every 2 years for that merit increase. And then as you work for us longer, you're only eligible every 3 years. So staff's proposal is to condense that down so people in their first 10 years of employment would be eligible for a merit increase every year for the first 10 years, and then every 2 years thereafter until they reach the end of the scale. They will top out quicker, but again, we're trying to target those employees to stay beyond 4 years. That first 10 years worth of employment until they're eligible for some other perks. Option D was an across the board wage increase. And we looked at that, and we know that that would increase our general fund expense by a little over $100,000 and utility fund by about $22,000. We talked about how there was a conversion formula that takes, our fire department works 24-hour shifts, and through this wage study, we found that the other fire departments that work 24-hour shifts also use the same conversion formula. And it basically takes the annual salary and divides it over the hours that they work, which is like 2,911 hours or 2,912 hours, plus a little bit of overtime or 212 hours a month, plus a little bit extra, because they work an extra shift sometimes, compared to 2,080 hours, which is what people would work if they work a 40-hour work week. Does that make sense? So they're working more hours for that same annual wage, so therefore the hourly rate goes down. That conversion formula for us basically makes it 75 cents on the dollar. So if we only follow that conversion formula, if we set $1 an hour wage increase to the non-fire scale, that translates to a 75 cents increase for the fire scale. What that does is I feel like that kind of broadens the divide, because as you add, let's take the 1.8% COLA that we did this year. If you add 1.8% COLA to $1, it is more than if you add 1.8% COLA to 75 cents. Does that make sense? Okay. So what we're proposing here, because we also know that department would still be below average, we're proposing $1 for every department, and that's going to cost an additional $6,000 to the general fund. So that would be the recommendation. And again, that TIF funding will cover it, and we won't use all of that new revenue. Of course, about half that new revenue will still go into projects and still equipment to still serve the general public. So those are our recommendations for you. Open for discussion, happy to answer any questions. And would definitely appreciate some guidance after the study session. We don't expect you to take action in the study session. How do you want to proceed after this?
I have a couple of questions, and I apologize if I'm busy at work and I forgot your email. I know, like, the police department, the officers have to purchase their own boots. Is that kind of the same way with the fire department? Or is their entire,
We purchased all of their uniforms at the fire department.
okay. And the police department is still, the officers have to purchase their own
Their own
boots?
boots.
Is that the only thing they have to purchase? Okay, okay.
Out of curiosity, is that just because people want to pick out their own shoes and the police department will buy this brand of this boot, but if you want something different, we're not going to buy that? Or is it more like a personal preference?
That, and I think we probably could, but what I understand, we have to identify it in the city of Concordia. Like with our uniform pants and stuff, I'll try to do that, have some sort of identifier to where the stuff can't be used for personal use.
Okay. I mean, I think there'd be a way maybe interdepartmentally to offer an allowance within the department budget that might balance that out to where the city's still not buying them to have to label it. They might be able to do something that interdepartmentally.
Right now, what we do is they sign basically like if used in the military clothing, this is what you're issued type thing, and you're not to use it off duty. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't have a juris doctorate, but I think that's what we've done. So.
You know, there's been certain situations in different departments. I remember one time we had officers in one department that wanted to buy their own guns. And, you know, you just gotta be careful that the problem is the more stuff that you purchase for them. So, and also like in other situations, we run into issues in previous departments, stuff I worked with was that they were gonna we buy these boots. But then somebody said, well, those don't fit me right, or those hurt my feet. So a lot of the times a lot of departments, you buy your own boots. And then also what happens is then that's not another piece of equipment that you're trying to chase somebody to get back.
Yeah.
And they're virtually not usable afterwards anyway. You're not gonna give somebody else those boots to wear.
I know the county buys the boots, and I know the boots are anywhere from $80 on up to $200.
Those have to be returned if they resign, correct?
I was breaking that.
But then there's giving away boots to their officers.
how we do our uniforms on the street department, like the shirts, the city purchases them outright, but like jeans where they can wear them anywhere, the employee purchases them and it goes on their payroll and they pay taxes on. So out of the payroll,
And no food.
we don't have no food allowance.
And that's one of the things most of our guys really, really want is.
Yeah. But we do, you know, when they get coveralls and stuff too, it goes on a payroll and, because they can wear them at home. So they're paying taxes on them that way. Or it's, how does that work? It's a payroll tax or something. If that helps on buying boots, you know, sort it out where.
But I don't know
We
if
can
it
really
would
get lost in
be
the weeds on it.
more cost effective to give them a $100 overall allowance just across the board, boot allowance, jean allowance.
That's what we do at the fire department. They can pick out their boots, but we only pay up to $120.
Does that go off of their paychecks then, too? Kind of how we talked about?
No, we purchase it, but they pick out, like, John Christian has that issue like you're talking about, because he's got skis for feet. So he has to have certain ones that fit. He wears a tennis shoe, not a boot, but we buy that up to this amount.
See, and I think that that's, when we think about total, how I see this fitting in is that it's all part of the compensation. There's the pay, but then we have the health insurance. And so I would think from a departmental standpoint, I think, and I don't know if that's something that, Amy, you could just take the lead on with the departments about how we can fold that into a budget where there is an allowance for coveralls, boots, whatever, but we could consider that as part of compensation, but it's really more of, I think, just an equipment for use. I mean, you can't, I'm not going to show up in tennis shoes and be able to do a job. I mean, that's just part of the tools that we need to do the job. And so I think that might be a separate conversation. I think it's something that we want to address, maybe have some uniformity amongst our departments, but maybe not necessarily part of the wage specific scale, but I think something to recognize. We want to have everybody on the same page departmentally, that it has specific requirements of what they need to do the job. So that could be over here, but then we have this conversation as to wages and compensation.
Right. Yeah, we got one department, purchasing most all needed, and then, these guys have to, and that would be, I guess you could say, well, we pay you a little less, but you also get general allowance, up to, I don't know if that's a huge issue. I don't know, but.
We'll just have to look into it and investigate it. That's something we hadn't looked at.
Well, there's a lot of places that don't do that. Nobody ever bought a uniform for me. At the hospital, you buy your own. It's expected. You wear a uniform, so.
So I think I'm a lot better philosophically than with details. What I want to accomplish, what my hope is, to where we have fair and equitable wages for all of our staff, that we have a consistent scale that allows for growth and progress. It helps retain employees because we know the cost of training employees is significant. But being able to do so in a way that's sustainable for the city. It'd be great if we could pay staff $20 an hour, but then the 3 staff that we have on instead of the 6 that we have are gonna, that's still not fair to them because they're gonna be doing twice the work. So where's that sweet spot where we're absolutely valuing people for the work that they do? We're competitive locally and regionally, but we're able to do it in a way that the city can sustain on a long-term basis. Because cutting staff because we don't have enough money for the wages, that's not gonna be beneficial in the long run. So.
Well, it's another one of those things where once you raise them, then every year, I realize hopefully the tax base will go up and we'll be collecting more, but you have to look at it long term. Can you afford it?
Absolutely. And I
I
think,
mean, I don't object to pay raise by
Right.
any means. I think they deserve it. But I think we have to be careful that we don't increase it so much and change their steps so they're getting to the top end before they normally would, which means it's gonna cost the city more money in 10 years. Nobody leaves, they're all at the top of their pay scale. I don't know what the pay, have the pay scale in front of me, so I don't know what the steps are. But then everybody's getting that, so everybody's at the high end of, I mean, that's not gonna happen, but
no, but
it could.
the counter to that though, that if that does happen, then we have a staff that consists of
Yeah.
seasoned people who have been here for a decade.
Right,
And there's a value to that.
there is.
Saving on the training. I mean, I think we want to get past the 4-year point. And I think if you paid them a little bit more to get them to the 4-year, I mean, if they're gonna stay because they like their job, you know, if they're gonna leave because they don't like their job, obviously they're not gonna stay past probably 2 years or whatever, but if we're gonna get that 4-year point, paying them a little bit more, yes, they'll max out sooner, but if you're in a job 10 years, you most likely aren't going to leave.
You're fully vested by then, and there's some other benefits there. And Mayor Commissioner, you guys can consider those two things separately too. I mean, our recommendation is to do both. We feel like we can adequately budget for both, but if you would prefer to take those recommendations separately, you can. The condensing of the merit step movement separate from the wage increase, you can certainly take those separate.
I think we almost would have to do like department specific, especially for the fire department, where we would want them guys to get where they need to be. If we do across the board, they're still gonna sit below average. And I don't know what his turnover is, but I mean, do you have a high turnover? You don't have really a high turnover in your department.
We don't, and part of that, and Amy and me's had a lot of discussion on this. And I've had discussions with my guys, the $1 an hour across, they know they're still under, but they also get the privilege of most departments, you can't go home or have your families come down and eat with you and that stuff. So there's those other benefits of being here that they feel it would be, and they're looking out for the city's interest too because of the money aspect and that stuff. So that's why they're okay with the $1 an hour across the board.
And that would be across the board. And I think I've certainly not been on call in the same way that you have. But I know when the times in which I was on call, it's not entirely downtime. I mean, I'm just constantly waiting for my phone to ring. You can do other things kinda, but you better not settle into anything and so I think that time, we need to respect that time and I think honor that time. Because it's not, you're on the clock.
It isn't fun.
No.
Right,
You're
you're tethered somewhere.
Absolutely. So,
The police department requires 40 hours a year,
Training you.
of training a year.
Yeah, minimum.
But most of your guys have plenty more than that usually.
Some of them are up around 100. Not this past year.
Yeah.
Because of COVID. It was actually 28 required this past year because of COVID.
So the city paid for the extra, I mean, the wages,
Yeah, city pays
for wages, no matter how many.
Mhm.
do we have some hope that after we make this adjustment, that we'll be able to set it on cruise control for a while, or do we anticipate having this conversation?
Yeah.
We've had it once or twice. So I'd like us, I want to honor our staff. I want to pay them well, pay them in a way that the city can continue doing that, but not keep reinventing the wheel.
We talked a little bit, I think Stacey and I were talking, I think the last time that this was looked at for a market wage adjustment was at least 10 years ago.
I was gonna say, I think
So it's been,
Has it been? I thought we've discussed it since I've.
we've talked about, well, we've talked about like health insurance and COLAs, but you
but
know,
as far as
specific
the
adjustment.
actual hourly wage,
Yeah.
I think it had been 10 years since it had been looked at for a market adjustment, I guess is what you call it. And that, I would hope that we could put it on cruise control for at least that long. The caveat would be what's happening at the national level, discussions about a $15 an hour minimum wage. Please understand that this dollar an hour does not get us up to a $15 minimum wage.
And we're not going to be the only community having that conversation if that is something that moves forward. And I mean, almost every organization in America is going to be having that conversation.
Right.
I also think, I mean, that we all think, we also understand that if that were to go into effect, there would be some time moving towards that. It wouldn't be,
I would hope so.
I signed this on January 31st, on February 1st. This is expected. So we'll have time to process that. What other questions? What other challenges? Suggestions? We are in my head previously, I kind of separated out merit and step, but they're really the same thing, right? Because the merit increases that you're doing your job so you continue to be employed by the city. That's your positive review.
Mhm. And then
It's continued
and then you're
employment.
if you have positive review, then you're eligible for a step increase as a reward, and that step is about 1% or 15 to 20 cents an hour.
And that's with specifically tied to longevity. Right?
I would say it's not considered breathing pay. You don't automatically get it just because you're here another year. You could have a poor review and still be here. You might be back on probation, you might get more frequent reviews, but you have to have a positive review to be eligible for that pay increase.
for the step increase,
Yes, yes,
as opposed to the cost of living increase,
correct.
which everybody gets
Yes,
just across the board.
yes.
So theoretically, I could be working for the city for 10 years and not have any kind of step increases.
Theoretically. But
If you don't
hopefully,
get positive reviews, you're probably not gonna continue to be.
Yeah.
You put up with.
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Probably just end up like in a one-man department or something like that, you know?
How long have you been here, Bruno? They just on fire.
Try.
I'm self-employed too, so I mean, I get it. It's-
And there's some constraints on the flip sides too. I mean, as supervisors, we're only allowed to give a single step increase to employees. We cannot give a 2-step increase,
Good.
even if they're stellar. That's a control that's set to help us be good stewards of the benefit.
That's fair. And step increases, like if they're field train officers, they go through that extra, they get that, is that considered a step increase or is that
No,
like a?
that would be
separate-
like a job change. So step is, if you look at the pay scale, the steps go across, so they're the columns. Then the rows are ranges, and those are tied to your job description. So if you take PD, for example, if they get a promotion to a senior officer, or field training officer, they're gonna move down a range. Same with fire, if you guys move from an EMT to an AMT, you're gonna move down a range. Same thing with these guys, if you move from a maintenance person to a maintenance/operator, you're gonna move down a range.
But we're talking about kind of eliminating that maintenance with that department.
Just the range 7, the very top one. So range 8 would be our very minimum. That would be the very, very least job, I guess, of the least scope, the least skilled job that you could have with the city.
So we'd eliminate 7, so 8 would be kind of the new 7.
Yes.
And then the 6 would be the operator.
8 would be the operator. We would no longer say you could work for the city in public works and utilities without being a maintenance worker and an operator. You have to have that operator
Okay.
skill. Does that make sense?
It does, and that's what I thought. I just didn't say it well. Any thoughts? Questions?
maybe I'm not smart enough, but I think I know which department is consistently below average. Can you tell us which one it is? Is it the
Yeah,
fire
yeah.
department?
Yeah, but fire and EMS is consistently below average when you compare it to similar structured departments. So your 24-hour shifts with a combination fire and EMS. And it's below if you look at all of the cities in Kansas, non-metro, similar jobs in Kansas, public or private. And when you compare to other cities in Kansas with populations range 3,000 to 8,000, yes. Regardless of whether the department structure is similar or not.
So at what point were we average?
If you were comparing to the similar structured departments, you would have to increase it by close to $4 an hour. If you compare to the non-metro areas or the cities 3 to 8, even taking out departmental structure consideration completely, I think it was about $1.76 an hour would get it up there. But that's a pretty significant jump in the money too. So
How
that's
long
where,
ago
that's where
was it
Eric
that
and I
we were
talked about.
average though?
Do it now?
How long have we been below average in that area?
I came here in 98 and we have been below average.
And I realize to get to average, you have to have somebody at the top and you have to have somebody at the bottom. We believe that our service and our people are not below average. We want to be closer and more competitive there.
Yeah, just our perspective range. We also, Cloud County had the lowest hourly wage rate in the state a couple years ago. I mean, it's not just, I mean, I get, it's just a community, it's a community issue and it's, I don't know if that helps or hurts, but I think it's important to know.
Are we similarly disadvantaged with our police department as we are with the fire department?
We were close on, the officers were close, the dispatchers were more consistently below, but they were tighter. It was like within 20 cents or so.
I mean, let's not diminish the value of working with department heads. Chief boss. I mean, I think of all the fire departments I could work for, it seems like that your group would be a pretty good group to work with, and there's value in that, value in working with the departments that we have, with the leadership that we have.
They make my job easy.
Yeah.
So that's the quality of people we have here. So that makes it nice.
You have a number of people who've grown up and gone to school here and have ties to the community.
But it's getting extremely hard. I'm the only one that started out working in the field that was not a volunteer at first until this year. And then our guy starts next week because we didn't have enough reserves that could take the pay cut to come here and do this full time out of our reserves.
You know, I really think we need to work at getting that remedied. Honestly, I do. I mean,
We're
when
gonna
we,
do it now sometime.
if we're gonna do it, this is the time. And I don't know if that would mean that we do it gradually or what, but if we've got a department that is consistently below average, or below, and we're talking about giving it just an across the board increase, it just doesn't make sense to me why we wouldn't address that as well.
Other than just for the increased cost, that's.
Well,
we're trying about, but I.
You know
understand
what?
you're saying.
We'll have more increase in cost if we can't staff those positions in those departments. I mean, you need a specialized skill set to do that job, and for that matter, the police department as well. I'm not trying to leave them out either. But
Are you suggesting like the $1 and then some for the fire department? or-
yes,
Okay.
I'm just saying that across the board, although it appears to be fair on the surface, it's not, that doesn't mean that it is.
Right. Yeah. I just wonder, you know, is there a way to work within that budget, that budgeted amount? I don't know. Not, you know, not wanting to pit departments against each other, but I mean, that's,
Would 75 cents an hour more in some departments
Yeah.
be just as well served as the $1, whereas the $1.25 might be better served than the $1 elsewhere?
Right.
If the stick's only this long, you cut it in half, or is there?
and I guess that's where, I mean, that's where I was kind of coming from with maybe doing a community study. And it's unfortunate we couldn't look at those types of things, because I don't want to compare ourselves to the Joneses somewhere else. I want to compare ourselves to this community, you know, and like we say, it's a low wage rate, and I'm not saying we should say that we don't want to be there. We want to increase, but is there, can we take, you know, working within that budget that you have laid out and getting a certain department up makes some sense to me, but I don't know what that does.
Just kind of thinking out loud, we have 2 pay scales right now. So the fire department works off of one because they're on the 24-hour shifts, and all the other departments work off the other. So if we go to a department specific and we find that different departments need to be at a different incremental increase to their hourly wage, we may end up with 8 different pay scales. So that would be one thought, one consideration, one thought to consider.
What actually would be the extra money if we put extra money into those departments, 75 cents an hour, whatever it takes to bring those 2 departments up to the mean, how much money is that gonna cost?
I'm thinking probably rough estimate, because we know that the extra quarter for the fire department, right, with the conversion probably takes us from $1 to 75 cents. And if we get them back up to $1, that's an additional 25 cents. That was valued at about $6,200. So if you need to add another 75 cents to that to get that $1.76 for the, then you're getting about $18,000. So we need the addition roughly. And now I need, Amber's not here to give me the exact numbers, but that'll
She
be
chose
rough
a
estimate.
fine time to have a baby, didn't she?
Yeah, she lasted our last meeting, but that was it.
And I think that the tricky thing is talking as if any of these departments are less valuable, right? Because they're all valuable. And as I said, I have absolutely compliment anybody that's going to be knee deep in water when it's 5 degrees outside. I'm so thankful. But I wonder, instead of having 8 different pay scales, knowing that there can be a greater risk potential with our law enforcement and fire department. Do we have 2 pay scales where we have all the departments here, but then law enforcement and fire department are here, which allow us to have greater mobility or market response? Does that give us a greater ability to be more adaptive, more responsive to wages? And then if we're looking at $100,000 in budgeted wage increase, and we have this, we separate them out into these 2 different groups, does that allow us then to apply 60-40 instead of the 50-50? Is that?
Yes.
I'm not saying that very well, but does that kind of make some sense? Because I think, I want to make our police department very attractive for new recruits. I want to make our fire department very attractive for people to come in and to stay in. I think that those are real. They're all important jobs. They're all important jobs.
Appears to me there's a lot more training in those 2 departments.
There's a lot more outside training.
Yeah.
I'd say the on-the-job
Job
training,
training
like
is
for
done.
Chris and Jeremy and for Ron, it's huge.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of what they do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but to pay extra, we're paying extra for fire department and EMS for their training. It's not something that the chiefs can just do themselves. They have to get outside training, where those guys are equipped with the training ability. So, not the chiefs are, but what I'm trying to say is, we're paying outside services more for training in those 2 departments.
It
And
appears that the fire department EMS gets gets grants for most of their training, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I think the police department is the only outsourcing training.
The heavy out,
Yeah.
heavy outsource, so, yeah. Other departments have some other outside training that they do as well. So what direction can you offer to us as staff, or do you need more information? Would you like to see more of a community comparison done before making a decision?
Well, no, I mean, if it's hard to do, I get it. I mean, I would, for Chief Boss, do you think the dollar increase, do you think that's, I mean,
I've spoke to my guys and they would see that as, because we've had a lot of discussions over there with them on the money aspect of the city and stuff, and they would, because of the other benefits, being able to have the family is to come down, that stuff, $1 would be greatly appreciated and accepted.
Well, that,
sorry, also recognizing, not visiting this for 10 years, not that this gives us the ability to, move beyond this issue for a little while, at least getting some, getting this issue fixed. And it's a hard issue in town for all employers right now. So, especially with a lot of jobs moving virtually, it's a lot of new opportunities because of COVID. Who would have thunk it? But it's made it so people are even more employable and have other opportunities and can still stay here.
so I'm really a good negotiator, Chief, but will the benefits of that community, the benefits that come with the job, will that translate to filling those positions?
I don't know. I can use Levi Whitley as an example. Right now, Levi Whitley has an offer from Salina Fire for $4.50 an hour more to go to work for Salina Fire right now. And those benefits are what's keeping him here. But I flat out told him, I don't know what does. $4.50 an hour more, I would have packed my bags and left. Because he can still live here and drive to Salina and work. So, I mean, those benefits are very fortunate to these guys and they do see them. So if that answers your question. I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't.
Because I could see if, it seems like if we could get a recruit in the door, then that conversation would happen, but are we gonna miss? And maybe I'm trying to solve a problem that we really don't even have yet, but if we can get somebody here, I'm pretty sure we can keep them here, but does that $1 an hour help get somebody in the door for us to make our pitch? And if it does, then I think that we go with it and we move forward.
I think a big test will be the guy that starts next week. Because he's only been in EMS for a very short time, where the first one's, he's working as a part-timer somewhere. He's coming here to do it full-time, and if he leaves within the year, then we'll know those benefits wasn't, those extra things he didn't feel as good. The ones that we have here, that's the nice thing about bringing them up as volunteers. Most of them are hometown people and they see that benefit.
Yep.
So I mean, it's kind of I don't have a good answer.
Your new guy's probably just gonna use you as a stepping stone.
There's a possibility, yeah. But in the same token, I came here, I stayed for a while, I left because I knew I wanted to benefit up and I wanted to come back here. So it depends on why they leave, if it's money aspects or if they're promoting up to do something.
Higher position somewhere else. Yeah.
So what it sounds like is that we may be okay with the recommendations as presented, but maybe that we might have to revisit it if we're looking at maybe more emergency response, crisis response. I'm not sure what term really do it. So kind of the umbrella, make sure there are law enforcement, fire departments, or that we may have to revisit it, but that we can make a decision.
I understand the need to make a decision, but I also think that this is an issue that's not going to go away. And I think that we need to address it further. If we don't address it now, I think we need to plan to address it in the future. Because right now you've got several Levi Whitleys and great guys, and I would hate to see them
Absolutely.
go down the road. So, and I'm not intentionally leaving out the police department, but I feel the same way about them. So,
My thought about holding us is strictly based on their saying they're okay.
and that's great. I'm glad to hear that. I also think that there may be a time when that would not be necessarily the case. I mean,
But Mayor Commissioner, I'd say that what we see like in Ron and Jeremy's departments is they'll go for months and months and months with a consistent vacancy. I think, Ron, what's your record? 9 months with a consistent vacancy, not full staff. And then Rick, you'll now have 3 officers with less than a year of experience working for him. So we are trying, but yeah, it's definitely an across the board need. And I think to your point, Chuck, where you said, will we miss an opportunity if we're not there? Yeah, I think all of our departments have felt that we're missing opportunities. That's why it's been so hard to fill positions. We've actually done pretty well for the last few months, so we're really fortunate for that. What I might offer is, and just for your consideration, your thought is, what if we were considered to do the dollar across the board right now, and then monitor it for a couple of years, monitor our turnover, which is what started this whole conversation, and then see where we're at and see if we need to make additional changes to that.
I think that's I think it's fine to go ahead with a dollar across the board increase, but then I think a year from now, we need to be looking at what else we need to do. I don't think that we should leave this for a couple of years. I think that's too long. Because
So revisit again in a year and see how
we
we're
maybe
doing.
should start talking about it even as soon as our budget, when we're planning our budget over the summer.
Well, and if I'm looking at this right, this table 2 that you sent us, which is comparison to the same structure, we really, if we go with the COLA plus the hour, which is what we're talking about, it really looks like there's only a couple of positions that are still, one of them is fire and EMS. And then your dispatch, patrol officers like 20 cents an hour. We're kind of out of range. I had to, it said when I looked at it, it looked like our animal control officer must be worth more to this city,
And there's 2 positions on there. There's the sports complex operator and the animal control, where there's just one person, and we've been fortunate to have them in place for a number of years.
Yeah.
And so all we had was that one wage, not necessarily the entry level, but they're comparing the rest of them too. So they're not a really fair comparison there. But
I mean, I looked at it and I thought, well, we value the animals more than humans.
Some do.
I was gonna say, well, sometimes.
Well, that might be true, but
Yeah, my thought about wanting to put it on cruise control is not that it's not an important, but more about not reinventing the wheel. Until we come up with a step increase that can be consistent, and then we have wages that we study, but that
Yeah, I agree.
we have this for the first 5 years, and then we have this, or we do this every year for 10 years, and then we move on. The structure can sort of get locked in, even if we continue to reevaluate the wages.
well, and the income of the city, the tax base. You gotta have the money to do it.
That's right.
I think we're ready to move forward next meeting.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and put this on action agenda for next meeting, and then you guys can decide what specifically that you want to do. Thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for all